Hey folks, Michael here. The reassessors have arrived. What I'm talking about there is now we're getting people who have held off on their review of McCartney's new album, The Boys of Dungeon Lane. And basically what I'm seeing is a lot of patting on the backs of themselves for not rushing their review. I've lived with my review now for a couple of weeks, and I'm quite comfortable with the initial review I gave this album. Now, after that initial review, if you've kept up on my streams and everything, you'll know I've slightly reassessed songs. I've downgraded a couple, I upgraded a couple, but generally speaking, I still say this album is a minor masterpiece. Now, this one individual that I'm thinking of did a video where he criticized those of us who came out with quick reviews. If you recall, I listened to that album 5 times. He even criticized the fact that who can listen to an album 5 times? Well, I can, young man. I've been doing this a long time. I'm a singer, songwriter, I'm a musician. I know what to listen for. And if I'm in the mood, I can lay down any album in rock and roll and play it 5 times in a row and write a review on it. His main input in this, and like I said, I don't even want to mention his name. That's not important. The man is entitled to his opinion. And we're going to talk about that opinion in a minute here. I have friends who don't agree with my assessment of Paul McCartney's new album, The Boys of Dungeon Lane. I'm cool with that. Some of you don't agree with me. That's fine. I don't care. That doesn't bother. What I do here is I give my opinion. That's what the bottom line is all about. It invites you to comment back, and then I've always said that the main opinion of this channel is in the comments. It's not what's on any particular video. Now, he said that I gave, the majority of the songs top marks, and by the way, I still stand by that. As a matter of fact, his whole video is based on his so-called more realistic view of the album. And of course, he even quotes a third content creator that gave this album a 6.7. That's his review, 6.7 out of 10. And he seems to think that's a much more reasonable review. The whole time actually saying quite nice things about the album. And in the end, I think he gives it a slightly lower review of a 6.5. I got news for you. If that was the percentage of your grade and you're in college, you will have earned yourself a proud D. Okay? 6.7 is a D plus. And he seemed to be happy with that individual giving that. We've also got Andy on over on Two Legs, which we've made peace. Peace out, Andy. No problems. And he's comparing it to, and I see what he's doing there. Both albums have 14 cuts. Okay, that's cool. That's an easy track-by-track analysis kind of thing. But I don't think that The Boys of Dungeon Lane is quite as good as Flaming Pie. It has a 10 times better album cover, all right? Love the jacket, love the booklet, everything. The packaging is wonderful. But I have always ranked Flaming Pie as one of Paul McCartney's masterpieces. And if you recall, I ranked Paul McCartney's The Boys of Dungeon Lane, along with 3 other albums, as minor masterpieces. Those 3 albums would be The Boys of Dungeon Lane, right? Memory Almost Full, and, of course, Flowers in the Dirt. But minor masterpieces nonetheless. Now, this always happens with albums. You've got those of us who are hot and bothered. We get our reviews out quick. You get those who will wait 3 or 4 days and then pat themselves on the back for waiting. 3 or 4 days doesn't give you a chance to get any deeper into that album than, say, what 3 or 4 weeks would be, all right? And then you've got those who are now finally giving us their rankings, their assessments on the album, and there are some of them that are coming out saying this is being overly hyped. Now, it's interesting, this individual who gives the album a 6.5, when you get right down to it, all of his, matter of fact, he says there's nothing on this album that is as good as My Brave Face. I disagree. I just asked Kimberly, because she likes My Brave Face. She thinks that's a great song. So do I. I've recently said that. I said, now, is that better than The Days We Left Behind? She goes, no. Immediately, she didn't even have to think about it. Kimberly's not even a musician. Okay, I have stated that The Days We Left Behind is as good of a song as anything that he wrote with the Beatles. It's one of his greatest songs ever. Plain and freaking simple. Now, I can understand, yeah, but I don't like the voice. I've said that many times. If you don't like the voice, then people who don't like his aged voice is probably not going to give this album much of a chance to get into their good favor. And most obviously, this young man feels the same way, okay? That the album should be judged on Paul McCartney's voice. I want to remind you guys that for years now, I have been saying, I criticize Paul all the time. As a matter of fact, I get a lot of hullabaloo from Beatle-related channels who think I'm too tough on Paul. I've also stated that Paul McCartney is like my guy. I'm a Paul McCartney fan, no doubt, but no artist, no band is above criticism. When I would criticize him, I often said, you guys are my witness. If you've been with me for any amount of time, you know what I've said over the last 4 or 5 years. Paul McCartney needed to get back, to use a colloquial term, to where you once belonged. He needs to get back and write songs that his voice can handle. I've even criticized that the Boys of Dungeon Lane has 2 songs definitely that I wish he had sung differently. He's singing it in that ragtag voice, and those are the ones that got demoted by my initial reaction to the album. Now, as you guys know, I'm the one that's been out there criticizing Paul's voice quite a bit, and there are a couple of songs on this album where his voice doesn't quite match up. The songs are great, but I would give them about a 3.5 out of 5, okay? But there are songs on this album, despite his voice, that still sound good. Now, if you are bothered by his voice too much, it's gonna take you a while to pick up on how great the material is. That's why I've encouraged each and every one of you to give this album at least 3 listens, if not 5, before making up your final minds on the matter. Now, the content creator that I've been alluding to here also at the beginning of his video says that, hey, Rolling Stone magazine gave this album a 4.5 star. And he seemed amazed at that. Like all of a sudden, he thought Rolling Stone had lost their mind. Well, I'll remind him that if there is one publication on this planet that has traditionally been an arch nemesis to Paul McCartney, it is Rolling Stone magazine. That goes back to the famous Lennon interview of 1970. Jan Wenner was behind the scenes on that, encouraging John to talk negatively about Paul right and left. Of course, I brought up that his Ram album, the writer for Rolling Stone was going to give it a thumbs up, and he said, no, you'll put the kibosh on that. And of course, I'm talking about Jan Wenner yet again. Over the years, Rolling Stone has been really hard on Paul McCartney and Led Zeppelin for that matter. So I wouldn't necessarily consider Rolling Stone magazine a valid rating by any stretch of any means. But when even an arch nemesis of Paul McCartney gives that album a 4.5 star. You should question yourself if you're thinking this is a piece of crap. Now, I've heard from a lot of you. Some of you don't agree with how high I rank it. Some of you do. Some of you say that the songs are good, but I can't get past the voice. And some of you just say, every song on that album is boring. I don't like it at all. It's crap. So, my challenge to each and every one of you tonight is, if you haven't had a chance to listen to the album, choose a quiet time. All right? It's a pop record. Okay, this isn't ass-kicking rock and roll, although there are a couple of good rockers on it. But Paul has always been in the pop rock field for the most part. That doesn't mean he can't come out and create a ass-kicking heavy rock song, Helter Skelter, every once in a while. But for the most part, he stays kind of down the middle, just enough rock and roll to keep rock fans interested, and as well as just enough melody to keep pop fans happy as well. When you judge the record on that level, and you keep in mind, this is 84-year-old Paul, okay? There's no doubt about it, and he doesn't have the voice he had when he was younger. But you know, even despite that, I feel his aged voice sounds good with these songs because he finally took my advice. Yeah, I'm sure that Paul is even aware that Michael Noland is alive on this planet. But my advice to him on my videos and everything is get back to the point where you're writing songs that you can actually sing. Let it adjust your style. Let it adjust where you go melodically and everything. Let it adjust what key you perform in, and then give us something, Paul. And then we can judge you in your later career. And I've done so. You stood up to the test, Paul, and I appreciate it so much. All right, folks, that's the video for tonight. I hope you're all doing well. Stay cool. That is an almost impossibility here in Modesto, California. It's one hot day after another, and I'm talking getting up there 100 plus, and it's not a lot of fun. All right, folks, Michael Noland, and I'll see you in my next video.